It is so much fun to have a ton of a single game franchise on a single handheld. I remember back when the PS Vita pretty much had the entire Persona franchise until P5 came around on PS4 and PS3. The Switch has that as well. You could argue that the Switch is a Mega Man, Resident Evil, or even a Doom platform. The latter of that list has its entire main series now on Nintendo's hybrid system. Last week marked the day the Shantae franchise reached that same level as the original Game Boy Color entry has launched for new handheld gamers. Completing the handheld's collection of the series, here is my review of Shantae for the Nintendo Switch. As the origin of the franchise, Shantae is a kind of story we know well. Shantae herself is a half-genie who serves as the guardian of Scuttletown. When a pirate known as Risky Boots steals a prototype steam engine, she goes after her in an attempt to stop her from taking over the seas with said invention. Now, I'm not sure I would call the plot here great, but it is fun at times. Many of the characters we know from future entries are nowhere near as charismatic or even in the roles they are in those entries. One example is Mimic not once being referred to as Shantae's uncle. We definitely do have moments, like pretty much every interaction Shantae has with Bolo, but you should definitely play this more for the gameplay and origin factor than you would the other four. When it comes to gameplay, Shantae is a 2D Metroidvania platformer with combat elements. As you play through the game, you navigate a semi-open world map to find towns and dungeons, fighting enemies along the way. First and foremost, this version of Shantae is a combination of the two versions available. It has Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance modes that you can play. This is in reference to how the original GBC game could be quote-unquote enhanced when playing on a GBA system. Now, as you can guess, GBC mode is an emulation of the original Game Boy Color game, and GBA mode has those extra features, though enhanced might not be the right word. GBA mode has a brighter color palette than the GBC was capable of showing, and the ability to purchase the Tinkerbat transformation from Bandit Town. But GBA mode is not the only way to access this content. The Debug Mode that's been around since the original release is accessible on the Nintendo Switch from the title menu. Just input the code and you can start a debug game that gives you all items and upgrades from the get-go. It also lets you use the Tinkerbat transformation in both GBA and GBC mode. This does not affect story progression, as you can still traverse the plot with all of these items and navigate normally. The final new feature is save states, which are extremely useful. You can make 3 save states in each mode, and this makes the difficult nature of the adventure much more manageable for newbies to this older platformer. Moving on to the actual adventure, you progress here by navigating a large semi-open 2D map. Similar to Risky's Revenge and Seven Sirens, you have access to pretty much the entire map from the get-go. You're meant to go straight to Watertown after the first boss fight, but you can go to other places if you so choose. Granted, you do need certain abilities to navigate to those other locations and can't actually enter the towns until the story allows you to. You go to these places by platforming around and attacking enemies to take them out. Being the original game, all of the upgrade mechanics that came later are not here. You do have animal transformations that can help you navigate around, but even those require extra exploration so you can attack in those forms. Instead of getting all the speed and power upgrades, you have to manage distance and learn patterns for even basic enemies so you can take them out without taking damage. But this also shows the game's age. Being a platformer from the Game Boy Color, there are limitations in pacing and maneuverability. This is a slower paced platformer than even Risky's Revenge, and it makes the game feel clunky, both with how slow the game moves and how limited Shantae's hitbox is with her hair. Most airborne enemies are not just a task of jumping and attacking, but timing the attack just right. If you are even a little off and her hair hits the top or bottom of their render, it will not register that you actually hit them. This level of difficulty is what makes save states and the Tinkerbat transformation so useful. Tinkerbat combines the abilities of 3 of the animal forms and has a much larger hitbox for physical attacks. It doesn't remove all of the clunkiness, but definitely makes the game more approachable. You just have to know how to start debug mode if you need to go down that route, as GBA mode doesn't actually give you the Tinkerbat transformation to buy until pretty late in the adventure. Save states also help, especially considering the game's input lag problem. When I initially played this on a stream, I noted that GBA mode seemed to have a bit less input lag than GBC mode, which had a good half a second of delay. After playing for much longer, I find the lag very inconsistent. Whether you're in GBC or GBA modes, and whether you're playing docked, handheld, Joy-Cons, Pro Controller, etc., the lag fluctuates. On many occasions, I'll have no lag at all for a while and will suddenly go back to that half-second delay for a bit, making the old-school difficulty of the game that much more difficult. Speaking of the time I've spent, let us talk about content and length. Shantae is only $10 on the eShop and can easily last you a good 8 to 10 hours per playthrough. I played this original game back on the 3DS via Virtual Console, and it took me between 7 and 8 hours to get through to the ending on the Switch. Now let's talk presentation. Visually, the game looks fine. The emulated graphics look colorful and about like they always have. We do have a couple different filter and resolution settings to play around with, mostly for those that don't want borders above or below the screen, or want that LCD mode that emulates all those little squares from the Game Boy Color. Performance is good overall as well. The game runs nice and smooth, only dropping down a bit every so often during jumps in crowded areas. Though this might not even be a problem, as it only happened to me a couple times as I played. And with that out of the way, let's dive into battery life. On the original model, Shantae has a battery range of 4 hours and 45 minutes up to 7 hours and 3 minutes. On the Nintendo Switch Lite, it has a range of 4 hours and 52 minutes up to 7 hours and 10 minutes. And on the Redboxer V2 2019 model, it has a range of 9 hours and 21 minutes up to 11 hours and 48 minutes. In conclusion, the first entry of the Shantae franchise has come to the Switch, giving the hybrid console access to all 5 of her adventures. Now on the downside, this port has inconsistent input lag issues, and the adventure is pretty clunky even with the Tinkerbat and save state options. It's definitely worth it for fans of the series to discover the origins, but expect a lot of clunky platforming and combat as you trek through it. Reviews to Go rates Shantae for the Nintendo Switch a 7.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.